Hey, Google. Whoops. Never mind. Apparently, somehow, by saying that, it gave me directions to some random restaurant in Boston. Is this thing even doing anything? Because I thought I was getting DDoSed earlier. Random restaurant in Boston. Okay, I guess it is making it through. Okay, so it's not DDoSing, it's Google bloatware. I don't know how many of you folks have had problems with Google Chrome lately, but I'm telling you, using Google Chrome is turning into like... It's like driving a Greyhound bus at a NASCAR race at this point. It's just... I really don't know at this point. I'm going into Task Manager. I'm trying to totally kill the Chrome process, but there's one instance of it that won't go away. Yeah, it's saying access denied. It's saying access denied. It's from my username and everything. So it's saying end process tree. No, I won't do it. Or maybe that's what's running all the Avast browsers and whatnot. So we're using Avast Secure Browser tonight. Google Chrome has become a bloated mess. I'm tempted to go back to Firefox. Seriously. Anyways, how has your Friday been? What is up, everybody? This is Jay, aka MultimediaJay. Early evening stream before I take care of the Walmart stuff that's breaking up the evening, because I want to head out before they close, but I want to head out before... or after all the people with screaming brats are out of the store and went home for the night. I really don't feel like dealing with someone else's kids at all today in any way, shape, or form, because like many other people here in the Northeast, I am furious about the state of the pandemic. We're going to be talking about... Here we are again. This is under people and blogs, right? Jay's Pandemi-Rants. I might as well make this into a name of a series, because every time I come on here to vent about all this COVID crap we've got going on here, by the way, cdc.gov for coronavirus resources, every single time I come on here, it's kind of turning into a regular thing. I wanted to be done with this stuff, but people and their collective stupidity sometimes is the gift that keeps on giving. So tonight, we're talking about masking up for the Covidiot plague. Covidiot plague was a term I used last year. Covidiot plague is a term that I used last year. Hey, Mike, what's going on? And but nothing really breaks up everything you want to do, quite like some new developments with what's going on with stuff like Delta. And I've just, there's a lot of people that are sick of this crap. So am I, but not for the same reasons. So we're here today. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about recap first. We're going to clear up the remaining loose ends with that Blizzard thing earlier. Haha, the stream got demonetized. Doesn't mean as much as it used to. And then we'll get into venting about this crap that's going on with Delta and the new CDC guidance, which I'm sure a lot of people want to do. I mean, I'm telling you right now, I have zero goose egg patience left for anti-vaxxers and their unhinged lunatic sock puppet friends at this point. I'm working on probably having the biggest block list on all of Facebook in this local area, because I am done with them. But we'll save that for the main discussion. So first off, 6:30 at the Geek House. I would have been here earlier if it wasn't for something that I needed to vent about first, which is tech related. And I'll say this, Logitech, what you have sent to Blue microphone owners is a virus. Don't release stuff like that. I know, the term virus is kind of outdated in terms of malware. It proves that I have something to do with the 1990s, and I'm definitely old enough to have something to do with the 1990s. But let me tell you a little something about what happened to this Yeti Nano that I used for all of this. Hopefully it's in... Okay, that's cardioid mode. All right, let me tell you something about what happened here. So the whole thing about streaming, streamer gear, somewhere along the line there is a firmware update for these Yeti Nano mics and probably some other models as well that made them compatible with Logitech G. So if you're like me and it ain't nothing but a Logitech G thing, getting into Logitech G gear, you can bring your Yeti Nano along for the ride. So I received, oh look, a firmware update, let's install it. Whoops. So the firmware update, which makes this essentially a Logitech G streaming microphone and allows Logitech G to control all the blue features previously available in Blue Sherpa, has completely broken this microphone's ability to be controlled by Blue Sherpa. I can slide the sliders and play with the effects all I want. Nothing happens. So I have to use the Logitech G software now to control this thing, because the Blue Sherpa software isn't good enough anymore. Look, Logitech, not all of us are streamers who want Logitech G or some kind of unifying program to control all our stuff. There are people like me who are smart enough to realize it's a Blue microphone. It's not a problem if I have to open a Blue program to control my Blue microphone, instead of doing everything through Logitech G, which could get buggy or something if a patch goes wrong or something like that. So either way, I have both sets of software uninstalled, and I'm using the Windows control panel to set the gain on this mic at 70% where I normally have it, and I can use the control in Windows to control the monitor levels going to the headset. But look, this program is a virus. It has caused changes to my hardware that I do not approve of and negatively impact my ability to use this. It's not going to register with like your antivirus or anything, but it's just, this is the kind of nerd insult. This is the sort of nerd insult that it's the sort of thing that people involved with companies like Logitech or Blue should understand. Enthusiasts like myself do not like when anything tries to take over our systems in any way, even the tiniest bit. It's like I say with regards to numerous Windows updates that force you to go through all that. Hey, you sure you want to switch to Microsoft Edge? Hey, you sure you want to switch to this? You can't even log into your system without going through a questionnaire, and they're like, okay, Windows is all yours. Microsoft, it's my computer, not yours. And at the same token, Logitech, it's my microphone, not yours. I can make decisions on what I run on here and what is compatible with it. I don't need this to essentially become a Logitech microphone that I now need Logitech software to control as a Blue Yeti. One of these days, these tech companies will figure this out. Again, used to be something that tech companies understood. But in this day and age where everybody's trying to be a streamer, and streamers can be a little dumb and you want to put lowest common denominator on everything, we don't need software to do this kind of stuff. We don't need software to be doing this kind of stuff. And quite frankly, anybody who owns a computer, a microphone, a whatever, a gaming headset, should not have firmware that does stuff that they don't want it to do. The end. I'll figure this stuff out later. Looks like I need Logitech G software to control this now, and I am not happy about that. Now let's clear up the loose ends with the Blizzard situation with BlizzardGate. Did 2 parts to that earlier. There's really not much left. I thought of streaming last night, but it would have been a short stream. So instead, it's going to be a recap topic. Let's finish up the remaining issues with the whole situation with Blizzard, and then crank some music and talk about this latest development from the CDC. So, talked about the possibility of a civil trial if there were lawyers on behalf of the victims and things like that. But there are 2 things we got to talk about. First, let's talk about Alex Avraziabi's digital legacy in World of Warcraft getting scrubbed. And 2, let's talk about Bobby Kotick and the details that have now surfaced about his lowering the boom letter. So yeah, it was cool that he put his foot down about it. But it's kind of a bad idea to insult people's intelligence, that the collective inquisitiveness of the internet isn't going to figure out the little gotchas that you have and little things that you do, like what Bobby did by bringing in Wilmer Hale to investigate the processes at Blizzard. Let's begin with the Avraziabi thing. So people are like, oh, it's not enough that all the Avraziabi named stuff was scrubbed from WoW. Not really. There are in-game memorials to like friends of developers and whatnot who passed away, like the one for the guy who passed away in 2005 with his dwarf character Roosh, level 41. I think it's up by South Shore. It's up by South Shore, up in Azeroth, up in the Eastern Kingdoms. And so this is an in-game memorial. Some people, if you put a lot of time into the game and whatnot, there'll be references to you and stuff like that. The idea of being immortalized in what has previously been the biggest MMO in existence is actually something kind of cool. So that long after you're gone, so that long after you've left the company or whatever, you know, yeah, who's this guy? Oh yeah, do some reading and stuff like that, and oh yeah, he's one of the developers and things like that. You know, game developers do this a lot. Still triggering Google speakers just by saying that, and I have no idea why. I might just unplug them all. So I already have I've already had the Amazon one unplugged because of the Amazon Sidewalk thing earlier. But if these things keep interrupting me like this, I'm just going to pull the plug on all of them. But here's the situation. But here's the thing. Long live Leroy Jenkins. Yeah. But the idea of, you know, being kind of immortalized in a video game, there's that character in the Torrens starting area who is a Make-A-Wish person and whatnot as well. There's a lot of nice, you know, benevolent things that can happen that people can do. Like, yeah, you know, make a character about someone who passed away or something along those lines. It's usually a nice thing to do, to be essentially immortalized with an in-game memorial of sorts. So to have Blizzard scrub the everything related to someone who did a lot of work in making WoW as successful as it was really speaks to the seriousness of the situation. I think the most serious part of the Blizzard thing is brand damage, more so than any lawsuit or anything else. The ability to retain talent is going to be affected by this. The ability to make competitive goods and services is going to be affected by this. It's going to negatively affect Blizzard, even if people don't get the outcomes they want from the California lawsuit and stuff like that. So it is going to be something that's going to do bad things to Blizzard. Justice will be served one way or another, even if it is through coincidence. Just what happens. You know, that old 80s song, one thing leads to another. Well, the one thing leads to another thing is in play here. And quite frankly, anyone who's upset about this, you're going to get what you wish. It just may not be what you think it is. But, you know, life has a way of doing things like that. Let's talk about Bobby Kotick lastly, and the Kotick, I keep saying it wrong, I don't know. Let's talk about the CEO. The CEO bringing in Wilmer Hale. Well, details have come out since then in other folks who talk about this, like Virtual Legality. Those are actual lawyers doing shows and things like that. The Wilmer Hale is already Blizzard's law firm. So for someone like myself who remembers the Enron scandals that have affected how companies view ethics and all kinds of stuff for decades afterwards, it bothers me that there is an Arthur Anderson Enron situation in play here, where oh yeah, we're going to be externally audited by our own law firm. So did CEO Bobby here not realize that the collective inquisitiveness of people out there and people pooling their skills would eventually come up with this missing detail? That this law firm that's going to audit the company, it already has some kind of conflict of interest versus Blizzard, Activision Blizzard? Did he really think people wouldn't figure that out? And now that this is in play and this detail is out and people are cynical about it, as they should be, this will cause brand damage too. So does Blizzard really, even if you want to talk about Blizzard damage controlling things, even if you want to talk about it that way, this obviously sabotages those efforts. Even in terms of damage control, they can't do it right. So here's the final thing on all of this Blizzardgate crap. I'm probably going to play through Shadowlands just to get my money's worth on the story. Don't know if I'll be doing much of anything afterwards. Final Fantasy has its issues, of course, because of all the exodus of players that have gone over to the other game. So I've got that sub canceled. Might, check it out later or something when the hype dies down and the server queues drop. There's plenty of other stuff to play, such as the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters that just came out, as well as ESO, my main game of choice. Elder Scrolls Online. Still haven't finished the Blackwood expansion, so, we'll just get to that. Things along those lines. There's so much going on right now with everything. There's so much going on right now with everything that, quite frankly, I really can't say that I have much time to do anything, including the tech video projects. But that's another discussion for another day. What was in the Winamp the last time we had some music on here? Is it still synthwave? We could probably just get away with just synthwave here. Yeah, I suppose we could. We can get away with synthwave Or since it's a little bit on the angry side, let's bring in the one and only rock album that they had. Demon instrumentals might get a little bit repetitive. Might get just a tad bit. Why does this keep flipping? Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, because I really don't want like something that sounds too nerdy and stuff when the tone of what we're talking about for the Pandemi-Rants is going to be incredibly angry and venty and stuff like that. By the way, if this gets demonetized, demonetization doesn't mean as much as it used to, so I'm not too concerned about it. The stream gets demonetized, I really don't care. So sometimes the systems work it out when the extended processing is complete, but demonetization nowadays means you get opt-in advertising and stuff like that. The biggest thing you have to worry about is the algorithmic penalties for being, demonetized content. But other than that, though, if you have one video that's not going to be pushed around as much, what's to say that other stuff can't be pushed around more? People can't find out about you and then dig through your back catalog and see the thing that got demonetized anyways. So I'm not going to be concerned about an occasional video getting a yellow $sign. It's very rare on my channel, but some of what I've been talking about recently is controversial enough to earn its yellow $sign. Matter of fact, I'll bet this one, just for bringing that up in recap, there's already something on ad restrictions. Oh, no, not yet. You can see that in live control room nowadays. All right, let's fire up some rock here and let's talk about this latest thing that's going on. That is loud. Check. That is the Street Beats rock album. That is the That is the Stream Beats rock album, and it was at 100% in ear trumpet, so we've dropped it back down to 7%, so I'm not shouting over it whole rest of the time. Actually, we might want to put this down to 5%. Blah, 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 blah. Quick, listen to the preview. Rest of the time. Actually, we might want to put this down to 5%. Blah, 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 blah. Quick, listen to the preview. That thing... Having a way to listen to stuff and use internet lag to rewind the clock several seconds is so useful. All right, let's get serious here. All right, masking up for the Covidiot plague. Covidiot plague is my cynical term that I've used to refer to the status of Delta, the latest variant of COVID that's tearing everything up. According to some CDC charts, it now accounts, by the middle of the month, it accounted for about 70 to 71% of cases in the Northeast, here in the northeastern U.S. So there's recently an incident over at Cape Cod where, there's some outbreaky type stuff with about 830 cases out of an incident in Provincetown, Massachusetts. And because a lot of the people were on vacation and worked and lived in the greater Boston area, some of whom were from out of state, we're seeing whatever it's going to do make its way around. It's so hard to get the levels right when I'm doing rock instead of the other stuff. Keep an eye on ear trumpet and make sure that the music stays at 7%. It's harder in this than anything else. But yeah, because of that whole situation with Provincetown and everything, we're gonna put it way down and turn this one way up. We're almost maxed. That sounds good. So yeah, because of still not good enough. Yeah, I told you the microphone got all screwed up by this Logitech G thing. Yeah, I'm having a hard time getting it to where it feels right as I listen to it in the headphones. But yeah, the whole situation with this Provincetown thing, it's having repercussions, making its way into Connecticut, made its way into Rhode Island, things along those lines. Some of the people that were affected by that were from out of state. I just can't get it with this stuff, no matter what it is that oh, okay. All right, let's just put it down to like 10% and turn this up. I just can't get the levels right, no matter what I do. See, everything is screwed up now, including what I listen to through here. It's terrible. Thanks, Logitech. You've ruined my ability to stream. We could always just shut the music off and figure it out later. So, here's the thing with all of this. The latest guidance from the CDC is that if you live in an area with substantial or high transmission, you gotta wear masks even if we're shutting the music off. Shut up. That's one way to do it. Oh, that's the problem. That's our problem right there. This knob on the microphone now controls the monitor level. It is not independent anymore. So another way in which the firmware update has completely screwed up my microphone. This is terrible. Wow. I might as well just mute the music. Since I know the levels were correct, I might as well mute the music so it doesn't even go out to the headphones. Do that through OBS. Yeah, so thanks, Logitech. Your firmware update, for this microphone has completely broken it, and now everything that I do is completely different because of your program that couldn't leave my hardware alone. I can't use Blue Sherpa anymore. I don't have the same control that I used to have trying to get the levels right in the headset because your program changed what does what on this thing. Your firmware update. So, no more music. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, the silence you will hear is now courtesy of Logitech and their pathetic excuse for a firmware update that screwed this microphone up. All right, let's get to the actual topic since we're actually going to be now talking in silence like this. We got to sound like talk radio somehow. Masking up for the Covidiot plague. Covidiot plague is a term I've been tossing around that at some point this is going to be, well, President Biden is very, very polite when he calls it a pandemic of the unvaccinated. Pandemic, that's a nice way of putting it. Look, this thing, like we said earlier, is like a microscopic criminal of opportunity. It's like those people that break into other people's cars and stuff. You know, let's check the... It's like the people that do car break-ins and stuff when they find out that whoever owns the car left their doors unlocked. So, it's the sort of thing... Yeah, I use sound control panel to fix that now. It's the sort of thing where you hear about a bunch of car break-ins. You hear about the car break-ins, and then the police go on the radio or whatever, and they say everyone whose car got broken into didn't have their keys. You know, not the keys. They didn't lock their doors. So make sure you lock your doors. Yeah, it's an attack of opportunity, criminal. It's like a crime of opportunity against people. Whoever's vulnerable, this thing will go after. Who's vulnerable? The unvaccinated. You know, in terms of the spread and the severity of the symptoms. But wait, there's more. Delta has evolved to the point where vaccinated people can get this through breakthrough infections and apparently even have enough of a viral load to pass it on in rare cases. But that's what's getting people upset about putting the masks back on. The first thing you say is, look, I got my shots. Why should I have to do this? The truth of the matter is the government has what's called a compelling governmental interest in public health matters because they have a compelling reason to help as many people stay alive as possible. Because even the people you dislike in society contribute to the economy. If people are joking about, Darwin, natural selection, if that went around and in the state of Connecticut, say it's 60-30 vaccinated, 60% of the population is fully vaccinated, the only number that matters versus Delta. Let's suppose all of the remaining 30% were anti-vaxxers, vaccine resistant, people that were like, I'm not getting it, instead of people that were just undecided or uncertain or they couldn't carve out time from work or something. If we lost 30% of the population to Delta, and that's 30% of the adult population of Delta, that's an economic contraction. That's less people to do work. That's less people to do work. That's less people to spend money. That's less this, less that. And so that's one of the elements of trying to manage the pandemic from everything that I've seen here. That's one of the elements of trying to manage the pandemic here is to understand that money is going to go in different directions based on which industries are where with regards to all of this. So let's say you have a bunch of people, they wind up with long-term complications from COVID because of the disinformation stuff that's going around. Suppose you wound up with people with long-term complications from COVID. Now you've got money that could have gone to small businesses, places that used to go out every night, blah, blah, blah. Now it'll be funneled into the healthcare system for treatments and other stuff like that. And do you want all the money tied up in one industry? If you have, for example, a town with 5 different industries represented, 4 of them take a hit, healthcare gains. That's the thing. It's something that is very concerning with regards to the long-term effects of these people that are making the news now because they didn't want to get the vaccine, then they got clobbered, and now their attitude has changed. So, let's talk about the mask thing. Masks were a pre-vaccine form of responding to this. back last year when we didn't have any other options, when we really were helpless. Well, now we have a vaccine. And we're at the point where people are talking about, well, any remaining stuff is preventable. Yeah, well, the thing is, what year do you want to live in? It's 2021. We have something available now, the vaccine, that we didn't have a year ago. But when it comes to the situation with masking, some of the latest CDC guidance talks about that some studies, including stuff related to the Cape Cod outbreak, were indicating a viral load. Once it gets big enough, that's how much virus you have potentially that you could be exhaling and stuff like that. Depends on what's in your nose and mouth and stuff. When that gets high enough, then you're talking about a risk of transmission. For a while, the numbers were indicating that the vaccinated had lower viral load, so to speak, so less risk of transmission as a result of that. Delta has evolved in a different direction. Delta has struck back, essentially. The invisible microscopic enemy has struck back against what we're doing. I mean, if we were at war, if we were at war with, some a war and whatnot, we'd be talking about the enemy has made a move to try and counter something that we've done. But for some reason, people who would normally embrace such militaristic sounding America fighting wars for freedom and stuff like that, suddenly the whole discussion has completely changed because it's a pandemic. Doesn't make any sense. So it's a different story today than it was with the UK alpha variant earlier. Now we're talking about situations where people that are vaccinated, even though their symptoms are cut down, you're talking about a situation where there's enough viral load in some of the patients from some of the data, even related to the stuff that went on in Massachusetts, to suggest that you could pass it along to somebody, even if your symptoms are lessened or you're asymptomatic. This gets us to something I was worried about months ago. Once, the vaccines were available for everybody in Connecticut, and I was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's go get these things. And then I was like, but wait a minute, what about transmission? Because everything was a giant question mark at the time. I was like, well, are we going to get to a situation, hey, motorcycle, are we going to get to a situation where if you don't have your shots, you're basically living life going through a figurative minefield where everybody around you could potentially be an asymptomatic carrier that could inadvertently give you the virus? For the longest time, the numbers with the previous variants were like, probably not. Apparently, it's enough for the CDC to now make a new recommendation and now flip things back and forth based on the level of community transmission. But just because there is now guidance that fully vaccinated folks should be wearing masks again doesn't mean it's the same as it was before. I think a lot of folks like myself who are upset about this are probably mixing up the emotions we have now with the emotions we had before. When you didn't have your shots and you were getting upset at the people around you who didn't have their masks on properly, you were worried about getting this thing because you didn't want to get it. But if we have a situation where, let's see, Microsoft OneDrive, can I close this thing? Let me use my computer, Microsoft. Yeah, oh yeah, that's right. My Google Chrome is still broken. Let's use Avast Secure again. So it's a different story with this all together. Let's see, CDC, and that's where my links are too. Transmission tool. We'll just do CDC transmission tool, like we're tools for healthcare sex. Yeah, now I can't even get my own. I can't get at my own link now. I can't get at my own link now because it's locked in Google Chrome. Let's click Google Chrome. Nothing's happening. Yeah, because it's TSR'd. I can't close the Chrome process without restarting the computer, but every Chrome that I open up is not actually going to show up on the screen. Look under details. There's only one Chrome that's running, and I go to close the thing, access denied. So Chrome won't work, but I can't kill the process. So it's, God, this would be so much better if it was Linux. Let's see. How about, say, CDC tabla? See, cdc.gov, Why don't we just look at transmission? Can I at least get at? No, I'm having a hard time here. I'm actually having a very hard time here finding the map for the CDC transmission map now because I can't get at my links in Google Chrome. Show me, how do I get to the data if I don't have the link? Everything's so buried on here. I'm getting recommendations, but I'm looking for the Tableau chart that I've been seeing. Regardless. The situation we find on our hands, here is you have a situation where if you look at the data for for the breakthrough infections, the extremely low number of cases and deaths relative to the number of people that received the doses, with all of this. This mask thing, with what I'm seeing right now that I can't get at because my Chrome is broken, this mask thing is more a matter of being nice to those around you. It's not like it was before. The vaccine benefit is still in play. We're just looking at stopping transmission now. If, say, you're one of those unlucky people who passes this along despite having your shots when you get your Delta sniffles or whatever from it later on. CDC, you know what? Let's try CDC community transmission map. There it is. That's the search terms to use. County view, track hospitalizations, da-da-da. Where's the new one that just came out? I'm loading it. Whoa, this looks like the old one. Friday the 23rd through Thursday the 29th. How come I can't see the entire... Ooh, it's lagging. It is so lagging. Yeah, most of Connecticut is orange, so there's probably going to be a statewide advisory to start wearing masks again. This thing is still leaking, too. I should put it on the shopping list to replace this useless thing. Of course, I've used it certainly enough as it is, but it's just not doing its job anymore. Of course, the Walmart, knowing their intelligence in terms of keeping themselves stocked, they probably don't have it. I'll have to buy an insulated drink thing on the internet. Boy, won't that be sad. Let's link up to Avast Secure. Since half the darn stuff that I'm trying to stream with in this rant is broken, let's have some fun with the one thing that isn't. So let's link the browser up and let's look at this CDC thing. Where is this? There it is. At least that still works. So here's the community transmission map. There was something better. There's actually something better earlier that was on screen that lit up entire states. I don't know exactly where that one went. How about the vulnerability index? Integrated county views. But here's something interesting worth noting with all of this. The Northeast is among some of the most vaccinated, part of the country. And here we go. Where's the most yellow? The Northeast. So you've got the effects of Cape Cod making their way out through Massachusetts into Rhode Island and Connecticut. But other than the Cape Cod thing, there's a lot of yellow that's around here. So the big question I have here in Connecticut is how far are the effects of the Cape Cod thing going to go? Because you're talking, say, about 30% of the people involved in what happened in Provincetown out here somewhere. We have a pointer, right? Yeah, okay. But you have a bunch of the people out in Provincetown, out in Cape Cod. A lot of them are from out of state. So the question is, well, there's a sizable chunk of people from out of state. So where did those people go? And how many people accidentally got it who weren't vaccinated? Or even if they were, and it was a breakthrough infection without them knowing it. But it is kind of nice to see that the Northeast still has a lot of yellow, and we're mostly waiting for the end of whatever this Cape Cod thing is once things get clamped down. The rest of the country, though, it really just shows that despite the vaccination progress, Delta is mostly a thing you'd want to be fully vaccinated against. I still see horror stories from people partially vaccinated and stuff like that. So this thing is not pulling punches. This thing isn't pulling punches. But let me see if I can find the guidance, because I was reading this earlier. Before Chrome broke. So CDC, let's see, viral load, guidance, masked, vaccinated. So somewhere between that, we should have that. There's the NPR report on it. But there's something directly from the CDC about all of this. 3 days ago. Let's see. It's in a bulleted list now, so let's just look for the word load. Data from multiple studies, people with lower, that's a Pfizer thing. Viral load is a key driver of transmission. What if I looked for Massachusetts on here? Nope, that's not this article. I was seeing it earlier. Actually. Basically, from what I've been reading here, the big issue and reason why you want to wear masks is to slow down the spread, even if you're not going to have any problems with it because you got your shots. So I expect the government in this case, because their compelling interest is public health, to do what it takes to try and keep people from getting sick, no matter what side of this debate they fall down on. And the fact that it's a debate is sad enough as it is. And that's where we want to get into a little something called sea lioning. Let's see if the browser will auto link to this Wikipedia article. Hold on, let's link it up. So I don't know how many of you people have seen Tucker Carlson and his annoyingly inquisitive attitude that he shows in his monologues and stuff like that. But I used to refer to this kind of behavior as being a passive-aggressive troll or being, sandpapery to others. Turns out there's a formal term for it. And you know what? Let's put some blue in the picture. Let's make it like 50-50 versus OBS. Sea lining is a type of trolling and harassment that consists of pursuing people with persistent requests for evidence or repeated questions, while maintaining a pretense of civility and sincerity. It may take the form of incessant bad faith invitations to engage in debate. The term originated with a 2014 comic strip about some sorts of things and it's a form of harassment nowadays. But this is something that I've recognized for many years. Long time ago, I talked about this as being a passive-aggressive troll. You didn't want to get people upset. You want to get people upset, but you didn't want to be explicit about it. So basically, you sandpapered and disagreed with them as much as possible and never seemed to give them the benefit of the doubt, because you had an alibi if they adversely responded. Say, look, I just have a point of view just like you do. Don't get upset at me. I just have a viewpoint the way you do, and my viewpoint's just as valid. Yeah, you see how that works? Well, now it's considered something formal. This is a formal thing now. It's so, this whole just asking questions thing, especially if it's something that could be, something people could look up on their own. This is the sort of thing that powers like the Tucker Carlsons of the world, who are making money off of people that are angry at this thing and basically catering to unmet market demand. I've seen the liberal folks on MSNBC and whatnot talking about, well, how can Fox News give it bad advice or in any way support bad ideas that are going to kill their own audience if they get Delta? Very simple. There's always unmet market demand. Unmet market demand will be met by somebody somewhere in a market. The question is who. When Fox News first started really taking off as a mainstream alternative of sorts to CNN, oftentimes made fun of as the communist news network, the idea that there was just too much liberalism in the media and conservatives needed a voice on a mainstream news channel. That was what was in play with that sort of thing. And so in this situation where you have a lot of people out there who are going along with this whole thing with regards to how to handle the pandemic and stuff, if you have people that are antagonistic to it, those people represent a potential audience and potential dollars and potential selling ads and basically anything commercial involving selling products and services to others. So there would be some, if there wasn't, say, Tucker Carlson or Laura Ingraham saying these things, taking this stance on vaccines on Fox News, it would be somewhere else, whether it was OAN or something like that, because there's people out there that want to hear that stuff, and they're going to dig around until they find it, whether it's from a TV channel or whether it's from a big TV channel or whether it's from some obscure TV channel somewhere else. There's a little something out there called confirmation bias. One of the things that human beings like to do is people like to look for what they already agree with in the first place so they can feel good about themselves. Doesn't matter if they're right, doesn't matter if they're wrong. It's all about tickling their feelings. So they go off and they look for whoever agrees with them. They have no interest in whether it's objectively true. They just want to be emotionally validated, even if the ideas that emotionally validate them could get people killed. It's people. My stepmother said it best. It's all because of people. Just like the people that antagonize their way into not enough people getting vaccinated. And now we have situations where we see where the cards fell. It's the South that's having the problems. It's the states with lower vaccination percentages that are having the problems. So, and Delta, I mean, once upon a time, maybe someone who's partially vaccinated wouldn't have had, with a previous variant, could have had, a better chance against this thing. But I gotta go into light mode on Twitter now because my Chrome is broken. Maybe once upon a time, I guess this is gonna have to look pretty crappy then. Once upon a time, maybe a previous variant would have, let's do this. Maybe a previous variant wouldn't have been as much of an issue with someone who's partially vaccinated. But what I've been seeing from the numbers and the news coverage, as well as the testimonies that people are saying about their experiences when they end up in the hospital and whatnot is that only fully vaccinated matters versus Delta. So you can't be, there's even one case of someone from India actually who had a 2-dose thingy, and they were less than 2 weeks away from the second dose, and they still had they still got clobbered by Delta, because this thing doesn't pull punches. This thing absolutely doesn't pull punches. I was wondering when we would reach this situation where there was Delta or there was a COVID variant of some sort that could be considered the Covidiot plague. It exists and makes the rounds among the unvaccinated, and its targets, for the most part, are going to be people who are snookered by antagonistic people who have something to gain from being contrarian about this deadly disease. I was wondering when that was going to happen. Now here we are. I was wondering when we were going to have a situation on our hands where the vaccines are good for the people that get the shots, but they don't do as much with transmission, so people can still be at risk. Here we are. That's what most of the mask thing is, by the way. Don't get too upset about wearing a mask again. It's not the same as it was last time. We're not talking about, oh crap, that moron with the thing on with the mask on their chin who doesn't care might get me sick. It's now a matter of doing the right thing more than anything else to try and slow this thing down. But it doesn't negate the benefits of the vaccine for people. So let's put something on the table. Let's put something here. I got to look at my Twitter in light mode now because of this Chrome crap and everything not working tonight. But look at this. I joked about how the South will rise again. This is COVID Act Now's risk map. You see Massachusetts and Rhode Island having been turned red because of the Cape Cod thing. This is risk levels and whatnot. It's based on things like cases per 100K and the infection rate. The infection rate's the big one to keep an eye on. So it's one of those cases where decimals, remember those annoying math classes when you were in school? Decimals matter. It's the ratio of how many other people on average get infected versus everyone who has it. So everyone who gets infected, how many more people do they infect on average? So 1 means the virus is holding steady. Above means it is gaining ground. Below 1 means it's losing ground. Southern New England used to be green a couple of weeks ago, so the virus was losing ground. Until Delta came to town, until the Cape Cod thing, and now we've got this. Looks like Connecticut stopped being red pretty quickly, so we got New Haven County, mostly in terms of risk that's left in terms of all of that. So the question is, among the highly vaccinated states of the Northeast, how far do the effects of Provincetown go? But if you look at the South, I joked about, the South will rise again. Well, I don't think that was too funny. Maybe I shouldn't have joked about that, because here we are with basically the Confederacy being recreated by Delta risk. Except Louisiana seems to be the center of the action this time. Yeah, these are the risk levels. These are the risk levels and whatnot. And if we actually looked at some of the states too that are struggling here, you'll see like 40%, 50% fully 40%, 50% vaccinated. But what matters here is the dosage. Let me open up in Microsoft Edge. Let me put COVID Act Now up in Microsoft Edge here, so I can leave that on the screen and just rattle off some numbers here. At least 1 dose, Virginia is 62% with at least 1 dose, but we know that Delta doesn't mess around. You want to be fully vaccinated. So 54% is the real number for Virginia. North Carolina, 44%. Kentucky, Mitch McConnell was talking about, I can't believe I'm having a hard time getting people to go get the darn shot. 45%. Tennessee, 39%. Mississippi, infamous for being last in the nation, 34%. Don't know if they still have the crown for that. Louisiana, which turned blood red on the risk chart that we have on screen, 37%. Texas, 44%. So we're seeing activity in states that are hanging around the 50% mark. Even Nevada, 44% or so. Well, how much is enough? Well, you got to look at who the potential victims are here. Even Massachusetts with the Cape Cod thing. One of the most vaccinated states in the country, 72% with 1 dose, 64% fully vaccinated. So we're talking about a situation here where who are the potential marks for Delta, since Delta, has this thing for anyone who's not fully vaccinated yet. You're talking about the difference between states where half the people in the state And that's not counting all the children too young to be eligible to be vaccinated, by the way. Half the eligible adults in the state can end up with this thing because they're sitting ducks to it, versus a third of the population. So how many potential victims are there, essentially? And what about the breakthrough infections? Mild or asymptomatic. They're being tracked when they go to the hospital and stuff, because otherwise we're talking about keeping track of how many people get the sniffles or something like that. People are like, oh, the CDC, they should track everything. Well, here's the thing. As some people, even the anti-vaxxers, are screeching about, the outcome is what matters when it comes to what happens if you get this thing. There are people who are asymptomatic and didn't even know they had it. There are people with mild symptoms. There are people with moderate symptoms. And then there are people with the severe stuff that wound up in the hospital. Would you rather track, in terms of the vaccine efficacy, do you really want to track the people where it's like, mild, moderate, nothing exciting? No, I mean, no, of course you don't. The big ones that matter is, hey, in terms of not overloading the healthcare system or not ending up with a huge hospital bill, you want to keep an eye on the whole situation with, do you end up with a severe outcome that requires going to the hospital? And then there's another element to this as well, and this is huge for me, actually, despite getting my shots. How about your work situation? How about your money situation when it comes to work? Because the folks I've known who've gotten booted out of work on quarantine, both pre and post-vaccine rollouts, I don't think there was anything in the unemployment system that covered their absence from work. So you could be talking about somebody who is booted out on quarantine for 14 days with no money coming in. And then for everybody else who's still at work, you're talking, though these people are out, depending on who they are, you could be missing key people, and the people going to work, things can be a lot harder for them until those people come back. So it's a situation where it's also about your livelihood and the ability to keep a roof over your head in terms of getting Delta, even if you're vaccinated. So let's say I got the Delta sniffles. So I'm one of those people, I end up as one of those people who gets this through a breakthrough infection and have mild symptoms. Oops, the mild symptoms get me booted out of work. Then what? What money am I missing out on while I'm stuck at home with no money coming in? And at the same time, so that's the thing. I mean, you want to try and not get this thing, not because not because anything related to the vaccine, but because of other factors as well. So let me just tell you that most of the people I work with are vaccinated. We've seen through the whole, you can take off your mask. You can take off your mask if you don't have, if you register with HR on penalty of getting termed for falsifying documents if you're ever lying about it, you can register with HR and take the mask off. That was under the previous guidance from May. Most of the folks I have worked with kept their masks off. They're glad to get rid of them. But there were a couple of people that I could have named off that kept them on. And I would not be surprised if they hated the vaccine. So you got people that are unvaccinated, sitting ducks to this thing, more prone to being out for longer because you have to be symptom-free for a certain amount of time before coming back. The key thing in my situation and others like me is to not be booted out on quarantine, even if we're just going to get sniffles from Delta because we had our shots. Not get booted out on quarantine before all the extra hours and all the extra money that there will be to be made when the people who are snubbing the vaccine are out for longer because they get clobbered by it. So there's one person, no shots. One of the last examples that I've known of somebody leaving, of somebody quarantining for a long period of time, was out for weeks with no shot. He didn't have any shots. He's out for weeks. There's an uptick in the hours unless we, bring in some temp work or something. And many of the people coming in through the door aren't as good as the people that have been there for a while. So there's opportunities to get more hours and make more money. And as the labor thing has been going on, wages have been driven up to where even Walmart workers in this neck of the woods can easily clear $15 an hour. Remember the Bernie Sanders thing? We need a living wage, $15 an hour. You can get that at Walmart around here. Walmart, never mind the industrial parks and the local warehouse scene. So you've got higher wages You've got higher wages. You have a potential for more hours because there's going to be somebody somewhere who's in the wrong place at the wrong time and gets this thing, gets booted out in quarantine. Or maybe they get a really hard case of it and they're out for weeks. So there will be money to be made. There's going to be money to be made keeping your team from falling apart when people succumb to this thing. That sounds kind of sick, but it's just the way the cookie crumbles. The truth of the matter is, when you compare all objective things here, the folks coming through the doors are not going to be as well trained or as experienced as the people that are already there. There's a very compelling interest for anybody in my position with a little bit of experience, being good on fork trucks, knowing a lot about the WMS and other systems and things like that, all that nerdy stuff. There's a compelling interest for someone like me to do everything I possibly can to not even get Delta sniffles, because I don't want to be booted out on quarantine, because I know at some point we're going to be losing people for weeks. And there'll be money and hours and all kinds of other things that, we can do something with to try and keep the team humming along while all this is doing whatever it's going to do to us. So when you're talking about masks and you're talking about pandemic precautions and you're talking about, what people should do even if they're vaccinated, you have to keep in mind there is more to the story besides what Dr. Fauci says. Everyone's individual situation is different. There may be some reasons why people don't want to get sick more than others. We just mentioned money with me. How about, for example, if you have kids that can't be vaccinated? Right now, if your kids are too young to get their shots, maybe you want them to, but they're not authorized yet. Now you have to be a nervous wreck about when the schools start back up. What's going to happen when the kids bring it home from school? Will your kids be all right? Will your kids be all right? What's going to happen to them? Could they give it to you? What's it going to do to you, etc.? Will you get booted out of work because your kids bring home the bug from school and you develop symptoms? So now you've got a kid, you're out on quarantine. And is there anything in the unemployment system that covers these absences unless there are a certain amount of days? Is there anything that does anything about any of this at all to help you out? All these unanswered questions, and you got a kid to support. You have bills to pay, you have kids to support, you have all this kind of stuff. Well, and at the same time, here in Connecticut, there's a bunch of narcissistic, self-centered loudmouths going around with that unmask our kids thing. Yeah, it's a political campaign. Convince the governor to lift the mask mandates in the schools, obviously based on the old guidance from the prior variants, but it's an inertia thing at this point for them. But yeah, the schools start back up. And then how about, for example, parents that'll argue all over the place? No, don't make my kid wear a mask. And they'll argue with the principal of the school and things like that. So you have all this selfish narcissism out there. Narcissistic parents who think their little angels are perfect when kids can be pretty filthy. You should know that from experience, by the way. So, now you're a parent, you're a working parent, you got your shots, but if you develop symptoms, you get booted out on quarantine because it's policy where you work. Now what? Well, you just work somewhere that's a little more lax on that sort of thing. Yeah, but if someone's lax on that thing and they don't care whether they constantly end up with a skeleton crew and work is really hard because they don't have any real well-enforced COVID policies, then do you really want to work there? Or does that sound like the worst job ever when you're constantly having to bail the team out a lot more than you would at a place that actually takes precautions? That's the thing. Yeah, but there's a lot of reasons for people to get upset about what's going on with the latest mask guidance and everything else. When we are here because not enough people are vaccinated. The numbers and the results, and most importantly, the results table, so to speak, of severe outcomes getting pushed off the table in many, many, many cases. Some data I've looked at mentioned that a lot of the deaths of fully vaccinated folks have something to do with an immunocompromised condition like being a cancer patient and stuff along those lines. So people are getting to the bottom of why the data is what it is. If you have breakthrough hospitalizations, why are they happening? If there's a breakthrough death, why are they happening? And of course, the ratio to keep in mind as well. 1,000 people versus 160 million people vaccinated. I've taken to the habit of, if I talk about this with people via texting and stuff like that, I will spell out the number. I will put in all the zeros. So if you try telling me 5000 something out of theirs, I'll be like, out of 160 000 000. Keep the context in play here. And the important thing to remember, and this is why I am done with the local unhinged lunatic anti-vaxxers in my neck of the woods. I've been blocking people like crazy on Facebook, even if they never say anything nice to me. I mean, they out themselves as people I want nothing to do with, so I'm having nothing to do with them. And quite frankly, they probably don't want to see me either. But the important thing to remember is sea lioning, as well as what people who are screeching about everything that could put you at risk, what these people are doing. It's not their objective to actually win the argument. They get what they want without having to win. Even if they can't win, they have a back path to getting what it is that they want. And the way they do that is by getting you to second guess the vaccine in any way possible. They don't have to convince you of everything. They just have to make you nervous and uncertain. They don't have to make you into an anti-vaxxer. They have to make you into the vaccine hesitant. And they've won. It's disgusting. It's a form of manipulation. It's charlatanry at its finest. The reason I keep using the term charlatan, by the way, I'm familiar with the religious version of this, where preachers have ministries where they have no accountability for what they preach because they're basically the king of the show. Oftentimes the ministry has their name on it. There's nobody to pull the reins on them if they veer from what they supposedly believe, teach, and confess. The way this works is they look for people who know less about doctrine than they do, so they can't tell the difference. And so they get people sending donations and money that way. And I'll tell you what, in terms of doing the right thing, if all that matters is whether people send you money, that's not much in terms of accountability, in terms of the outcome of what people believe. The thing is, though, despite having first noticed this behavior among religious people, the secular versions of these folks aren't that different. So, you could have somebody trying to sell herbal supplements, not FDA regulated as much as like medications and stuff. You could have someone selling herbal supplements. If you know anything at all about how the FDA regulates medicines and stuff like that, then you'll know too much to really be caught up in what they're peddling. And they're going to have to try extra hard to get you to, take their side and listen to them and buy their stuff. So the target in this case, if you're trying to peddle this stuff, is not people who know as much as you do or more than you do, because you need to know enough to target the people who know less than you do in order to get them on board with what you're trying to sell. And so the minute people know too much, you shy away from them, you have nothing to do with them, you block them on social media, you shush them. And I see parallels with the rhetoric that's floating around out there. Even little things like missing context. If you come to me telling me about thousands of people that have had adverse reactions to the COVID vaccine, that'll sound terrible to me if I don't know that that's out of over 100 million people vaccinated. If you show through your arguments that you are willing to roll the dice on getting COVID the regular way, but you are not willing to roll the dice on getting the vaccine, if I don't know it enough to call you out on it, I'm not going to challenge you on that. But once I do, I spot that and I know that you don't know what you're talking about. If you don't know anything about logical fallacies and you personally insult me for taking the side of science on social media, like some local folks that I've blocked have done, but I know what logical fallacies are, your personal attacks are not going to matter to me. And I'm going to know that you are incapable of having a civil discussion on anything, so why do I want to associate with you anyways? Yeah, I mean, most of this blocking spree is local social media. I don't want to see them, and they probably don't want to see me either. I don't care if I have the longest block list in the county in like a week or two. I'm just done with these people. We're in this position because of these people, these con artists out there that are not even trying to win the argument. They're just trying to sow fear, uncertainty, and doubt, FUD, in vulnerable people who don't know the part two of the story. And here's another element of this too. Some of the people who support the vaccines that I've seen on social media are arguing with these people. Look, if these people are willing to believe incomplete data without knowing what a logical fallacy is, or how to actually, or why peer review is anything at all in the world of academia, don't even bother with them. They will, by force of emotion, believe what they believe, regardless of whether the details add up. And by doing that, they're also distracting you from the real crowd of people whom they, by the way, are already trying to reach. The people who don't know and that are open to, okay, what does everyone think of all of this? People who aren't sure of themselves. That's the con that's in play here. I mean, I grew up with consumer awareness shows like Steals and Deals and stuff, warning me about ripoffs and stuff like that. And scams and things along those lines. And I think some of it kind of just sunk in as I grew up. Because being reminded of these things with some of the arguments being thrown around about all of this. But what about Fauci? What about Fauci? If you don't like Fauci, there's plenty of other people like Dr. Walensky or some of the other folks. Or you could say, you could just acknowledge that the CDC, Fauci's the figurehead. There's probably rank and file folks compiling data that you could say you're going to get the numbers from. And Fauci's just the mouthpiece. So you don't like Fauci? Whoop-de-doo. There's ways around that. And still getting the data that you need to keep your head on straight. What about President Biden? You may not like President Biden. Okay. He's a politician. You want to take medical advice from a politician? Skip it. You know he's getting his stuff from somewhere else. Find out what the somewhere else is. Someone else. There's all kinds of ways that you can come up with a conclusion that vaccines are amazing. And by the way, a triumph of Western capitalism, because vaccines from other parts of the world, including China, there have been articles written about how the efficacy was lower than the Western vaccines. And they're trying to mix cocktails together to boost things up. But once upon a time, right-wingers in America who would support capitalism, support business, support American free enterprise and entrepreneurialism would have praised something like this. Because the idea of being able to build something up and make something great is a very American entrepreneur thing to do. When we put our heads together, we can come up with solutions for lots of big problems in life. And the vaccine, the COVID vaccine being developed the way it was, by cutting the bureaucracy and the red tape and stuff that could be done at the same time being done at the same time instead of sequentially. That sort of stuff, that should be something that America is proud of and that right-wing America is proud of as well. This whole situation with the narrative being hijacked by anti-vaxxers on the right is a Johnny-come-lately. I could probably tell you that as recently as the George W. Bush era, there are probably some conservative commentators that would have had a very different attitude than what we see today, than what we see on shows like Tucker Carlson or what we see on Fox News. And, you know, I remember there was somebody recently who posted, there's 3 Americas as a result of the pandemic. There's Blue America, Red America, and Trump America. I think Red America is due to make a comeback. Let's talk about the ideas of this, the old way of being a Republican and how it appeals to people. Not the stuff you see screeched about today. Limited government. Don't let bureaucracy get out of control. Let people keep more of what they earn. Keep taxes down. Support business and entrepreneurialism and free enterprise. Support the stuff that helped us win the Cold War. And be proud of it. When Western capitalism comes up with a product that does a really good job at something, you celebrate it instead of being cynical of it. What happened to that? What happened to being good old-fashioned American about these kinds of things? What happened to supporting these ideas? I'll let the folks involved in that stuff explain that themselves. But when it comes to the situation we're in right now, the whole Covidiot plague thing, it's a cynical term, but sadly, it's the sort of thing where we've got something now. Chat disconnected again. YouTube flaking out. We have a situation where YouTube. We have a situation where things have to get worse before they get better. When I think about, for example, what Delta's doing and where it's going in the country and what it's doing to the unvaccinated and the things I've seen in the numbers, like on COVID Act Now, how the northern states, the more vaccinated states that have higher infection rates have lower cases per 100K because chat's back. Cool. Because the infection rate is a ratio. It's not necessarily a flat number. So if it's 1.45, like some of the worst states in the country are right now, that means everyone who gets COVID gives it on average to 1.45 other people. If it hits 2, like in Connecticut it did in March of 2020, you're talking about this darn thing doubling everywhere it goes. So that's why, you have a situation on your hands where these decimals, these little decimals, basis points even, make a lot of difference. Because if you're talking about the difference between Connecticut being at like 0.8 3 weeks ago, where Delta hadn't shown up yet, or it did, but it wasn't really established, and things were shrinking because of all the vaccinations and stuff like that going around, as well as in the more rural parts of the state, baked in social distancing, because out in the woods, you should have an advantage versus people in the cities that on average deal with more people and therefore have a higher chance of encountering someone who could pass this along to them. Remember the thing we talked about last time? What? Wrong person, wrong place, wrong time, COVID. That's the rule for people that were unvaccinated. Might apply to the vaccinated too, but the results won't be as severe. So, no matter how low everything got in terms of where this thing was going before it took off again, it would only take one person to get you infected with this thing, the person who gave it to you. So the more people you encounter, the more you roll the dice. I often wonder, with regards to the Cape Cod incident that started the surge in the Northeast, if you want to call it that, because with Massachusetts, even with a 1.4 infection rate, you'd see like 7 cases per 100K. And you're talking about a state with about 7 million people in it. So versus Louisiana having a much higher number of cases per 100K with that infection rate. So you can still see the effects of the vaccine if you go to COVID Act Now and you look up the differences. Let me just we'll put some of them on screen here. If you go to covidactnow.org and you look at the comparison chart, sort by infection rate. Right now, Wisconsin is the state where Delta's making the most rounds. Wisconsin, though, with 55%, about 50% fully vaccinated, and maybe it's only 5 million people and whatnot, depending on where it's going around, you're talking about 1.51 with a case per 100K, so factoring out the population of 10.9 versus Louisiana, 1.48, one of the southern states, 37% fully vaccinated, 81.9 in their blood red on the risk chart. Rhode Island, one of the unfortunate victims of the Cape Cod thing, because Providence is practically Boston's backyard. So is Worcester, by the way. 1.47 infection rate, turning into 10.8 cases per 100K in a population of 1 million in the state of Rhode Island. Tennessee, 24.4. Well, let's sort by daily cases per 100K. Louisiana, 81.9. Florida, 1.35 infection rate versus 66.2 cases per 100K with 21 million people. So you look at these numbers and you look at all this other stuff, and one of the ways you can see, where's Massachusetts in all of this? It should be, 1.45, 7 million people, 8.9 cases per 100K versus Georgia, around the 10 mil mark, 1.46 infection rate, 26.8. So you'll see similar infection rates, but very different cases per 100K. The CDC's recommendations, though, are not based on that. They're based on levels of community transmission, which right now there's a new tool that came out. And did I link it on my Twitter? Let me go see if I have it on my Twitter somewhere, because let's see, vaccines.gov. Where is that? I don't think I've linked it there yet. I'll probably do it after the show then. There's a new tool that the CDC just released that's supposed to update faster than the community transmission thing there. I just don't have access to it because my Google Chrome is completely broken right now. I'm going to have to restart the computer in order to get it back. I got some stuff I got to figure out with this system because I received a firmware update. For those of you that weren't around at the beginning of the show, there's no music right now because I received a firmware update from my Yeti Nano that has changed a lot of how it works and turned it into a Logitech device. So, and I don't like that. I got to see if I can reload the firmware that lets me use Blue Sherpa again and lets this knob, for example, not control the volume on the system. I need to be able to adjust the volume independently so I can hear more of the mic and less of the background noise. That's why I couldn't get it going earlier. Yeah, so my streaming setup is completely screwed up because of a firmware update from earlier and things like that. But yeah, so yeah, the new guidance is put the masks back on, and there's very good reason for that. It's largely a matter of now just not giving it to someone who might be vulnerable. So parents, if you're vaccinated, but you're a breakthrough case, to try to avoid giving it to your kids, try to avoid giving it to your unvaccinated friends if you still hang out with them. But I don't know, this tribalism has just made me pretty much say I'm done. If you're spewing disinformation, I'll stay away from you, you stay away from me. I mean, what happened to the conspiracy theory that these people used to be spitting around that the vaccinated are going to shed spike proteins? Oh, I'll stay away from them. Some of them people even talk about putting on masks because they're afraid of people who got their shots. What happened to that? Where'd it go? I'd very much love for some of these people that believe in this stuff to stay far, far away from me, and I'll stay far, far away from them. If we were dogs, we'd be having an argument about whether the ones with rabies deserved a seat at the table. And rabies is known for attacking the brain and making its victims go nuts, I believe. Well, with some of the unhinged lunacy I'm seeing in my neck of the woods, and this is New England, never mind, maybe a deep south state or something that's getting ripped up right now. Or how about, Springfield, Missouri or something. You got this stuff going on here. It's like, I don't know, maybe there is a parallel here. People seem to be completely unhinged about a lot of this stuff with what I'm seeing on the internet, and I'm done with it. Now, they don't even need to say anything to me anymore. If I see their profile picture on Facebook and they've got Unmask Our Kids Connecticut, they're blocked. If I see them screeching, not even to me, but screeching at, oh, I don't like Lamont, blah, blah, blah. He's just trying to control us. Blocked. And there's a very good reason for this. Anti-vax nonsense has been rebranded multiple times to make it more palatable to the suckers that these people are trying to recruit to their cause. It's really, well, don't insult them like that. Yeah, well, if you fall victim to it, then you were deceived. It's easy to not be a sucker, though. Actually learn formally about how all this stuff works instead of going off of hearsay from someone with an attitude problem half the darn time. But one of the ways in which the anti-vax movement has tried to rebrand in recent years is to call themselves medical freedom, which resonates with America. Oh yeah, freedom, right? Yeah, make your own choices. Medical freedom. Don't understand HIPAA and just invoke it when people ask you if you had your shots. Yeah, that's another sarcastic thing too. If you know about the context of HIPAA and how it's applied, once you know too much to fall victim to the scam. Another story altogether with HIPAA. But the thing with all of this, the thing here is that, medical freedom. Okay, so you believe in freedom, allegedly. And I'm using that term very, very seriously here because one of the reasons I'm going on the big blocking spree on Facebook with local social media is because I really don't feel like continuing to consistently get attacked on social media by the lunatics in my neck of the woods. I didn't even have to call these people out. I didn't have to do anything. All I had to do was post numbers. All I had to do was be a little nerd, like I am, try and be of use to the people that weren't in that camp, and I would get attacked in the posts. So I didn't even have to call these people out or even try and pick a fight. They were the ones looking for a fight. And when they came after me, ha-haing and making fun of me and, giving me a hard time, they showed right then and there that medical freedom is not what they're about, because it's the most unacceptable thing in the world that I chose to get vaccinated. There's the hypocrisy in action. It's not about freedom. It's about getting mad. It's about getting mad. Some cases about contrarianism. Sometimes it's about your emotions aren't very well regulated. Learn about borderline personality disorder. How about histrionic behavior? How about trying to get eyes on you because you desire that in life? then one easy way to do that is to start an argument. I really don't care at this point what these people think or what their motives are. Bottom line is they're the ones doing all the shouting. They're the ones doing all the shouting. Someone needs to give the part 2 of the story, and I am not going to argue with them because they don't even want to argue themselves. All they want to do is raise a big stink. Remember, the objective of the people that are antagonistic to this stuff is not even to win the argument because they can't. The facts don't line up with them. They don't need to win the argument to get what they want. All they have to do is make people doubt. Make people unsure. Once somebody is unsure, it's over. They've achieved what they needed to. They don't even have to win. And so when I see Jen Psaki on the White House briefings talking about, fighting disinformation with facts and stuff, that's an illusion, not illusion. That's alluding to the fact that, that's how science wins, is by educating people. Because as we talked about scams and other stuff that's floating around out there, when people know too much, the charlatans can't get to them because they know too much. Unless they're willing to play dumb and pretend they don't know stuff that they actually know, the scam is dead. On to the next one. So that's the issue here. It's not even about who's right and who's wrong. It's about one side being right versus another side just getting people to doubt stuff. Don't even have to win. Even if they can't, they still have a back path to victory. And here's the thing. If these people continue this nonsense and the disinformation continues doing its thing, number one, there will be a body count from it, as if there wasn't enough already from what we're seeing with these people that are ending up dying of COVID and wishing they had gotten the vaccine as they're being intubated for the final time. Yeah, it's popping up in the news. People are doing this kind of stuff. So, but even besides all of that, that's bad enough as it is. You're talking about a situation that I can tell you is never going to get better until these people are gone. Think like a cat, an angry cat that's been backed into a corner, and they're just getting more and more round. They're trying to stand their fur up to make themselves look bigger. Think like a tenacious cat that's been backed into a corner. They get more and more ferocious the more backed into a corner they get. You're going to get hissed at, swatted at, the whole 9 yards. And that's the future of this whole argument that these people are throwing around, because the more people get vaccinated, the more they've lost, essentially, because now it's the more people get vaccinated, the more they've lost. And as you have higher vaccination percentages, governments now have to deal with the unfortunate reality. Do they want to manage all of this based on an ever shrinking minority of people who didn't get their shots? Especially as more and more of the nervous people or the vaccine hesitant leave that group and get their shots, and all that's left are the people that are antagonistic. Do you really want to be setting public health policy or economic policy in terms of things like lockdowns and other stuff? Do you really want economic policy being set because of a shrinking percentage of the population? So imagine if you're trying to peddle this stuff. What's that going to be like for you? Oh, it's going to suck big time. So less and less people are still left on your side. You think you're right, but you're feeling more and more wrong as the walls keep closing in on your worldview here. So you just get angrier and angrier, and you do everything you can. You do everything you can because you know that your time is limited. With in any way feeling like you're winning in this fight. So, okay, with a bunch of states that are half vaccinated, we have problems with Delta and masks have to come back on. What happens when more states get to 2/3? Or when Blue America, constituting 70% of the U.S. economy, by the way, decides to stop bailing out anti-vax America in the South and everywhere else, what happens when the private sector or whatnot starts pressuring the government? Enough's enough already. Everybody who has gotten their shots is going to get their shots. Stop holding us back, which, by the way, was one of the arguments that came up in May with the guidance about taking the masks off. Some people were upset because of the whole masks were optional for people that had been fully vaccinated. Part of that was don't hold back the people that did the right thing. Well, when that group gets bigger and bigger, at what point do you cross that line to where you have to say, look, we continue things. If we continue a lot of this, it's just going to be for a smaller and smaller group of people because people have done the right thing. When do we stop punishing the people that did the right thing? It's the thing I used to run into in college a lot. The administrators and the bureaucrats in the college had this big problem with not punishing the guilty whenever something bad happened on campus. They punished everybody. It's like, why not just punish the guilty? Okay, a bunch of drunk frat brothers set a tree on fire and threw beer bottles at the firefighters. Kick them off campus. Expel them instead of banning outdoor gatherings for an entire semester. Something like that. I've always been annoyed by situations where everybody gets punished instead of just the guilty. But if we get to that point where we're further along with the progression and stuff, when can that start kicking in? That's the thing. When we get to that point, well, so I guess the question is how we get to that point. Well, we get to that point by going after disinformation. And in my case, I don't care if I block every anti-vaxxer within a 30-mile radius. I'll post level-headed stuff. I won't even attack anybody, but they won't be able to see me. So, eventually I'll get to the point where, other than the sock puppets and the people that aren't even from around here, which they do exist, there's people on Facebook with sock puppet and other accounts that crawl the internet looking for stuff to start arguments on, even if it's nowhere near where they are. Once the majority of the local folks are still around are the ones that won't pick fights at every little thing, then we have a situation where, answering questions, being civil about it, and not ending up in basically the internet version of a bar fight over something as mundane as getting a shot. When this is all over, people are going to look back on what people made a big deal about in the midst of all of this, and they're going to be like, what was our problem? What drugs were we on? And hey, you know what? How about we have some fun with some of the what ifs here? How about we have fun with some of these people that are sea lioning, as it's called? People that are putting their Tucker Carlson masks on. Oh, I'm just asking questions, even though they're legit, even though they're loaded, malicious questions because I don't like your point of view. Let's have some fun here. Let's pretend the conspiracy theorists are right. Let's pretend that everyone who got a COVID vaccine in about 10 years or so, there's going to be a mass die-off of everybody who got their shots. Okay, you're looking at an extinction-level event for a huge chunk of the country. Yeah, you're looking at, say, the United States population dropping in most states anywhere from a half to 2/3. We talked earlier about the government's compelling interest in public health because more people that are alive, that's more customers, workers, employees, economic activity, money changing hands because there's more hands for the money to switch between in terms of money changing hands. Why does anybody think that anything other than a completely unhinged lunatic government would want to run the risk of their population dropping by half or 2/3 because of this stuff? We have guidance coming out, as far as I'm concerned, to protect people who don't deserve it. Never mind, there's always the exception of the people with medical conditions that can't get vaccinated. That's what herd immunity is supposed to protect. But, with all the venom and all the bullying and all the crap that I've run into with the way people are with this stuff, I'm quite disgusted and insulted that my mask could potentially protect somebody who is never going to appreciate it, who is the stick in the muds that are responsible for the disinformation that has led to lower vaccination rates, even if not here, but in the rest of the country, until it boat anchored the rest of the country like this. I really don't like the fact that I'm going to be doing a nice thing for somebody who's complaining on the internet because they get to freeload off of New England's higher vaccination rates. They're surrounded by people who wore their masks and got their shots, and because there's more dead ends for the virus, they have more time to complain on the internet about how all of us who are propping them up are idiots, morons, government shills, or living in fear, or whatever insult these people want to throw around. It just disgusts me. Completely disgusts me. These people don't want to do the right thing. Yeah, well, you reap what you sow. At some point, you got to stop protecting people from their own stupidity. Look, that sounds so cold. That sounds so brutal. You know what's also cold and brutal? The reality that somebody could end up on a ventilator because of something someone told them. That's the thing. It just disgusts me. I'm sure I'm not the only one either. I'm sure there's commentators out there who've spoken about vaccines and things along those lines that are just sick and tired of all of this. But it's the unfortunate world we live in. Okay, maybe I'm a little more confrontational, maybe I'm a little more blunt, maybe I'm a little more alpha, as some would call it, than some of the people that are like, come on, we can do this, get your shot. I'm just done with, all the bullying and all the other stuff that goes on. Hey, I'm just checking how many dislikes have I gotten on this thing so far? Have we had people coming in and getting upset with me and clicking their little thumbs downs? Oh. I would not be surprised. I'm surprised I don't run into more of this. See, close that out and close that out. Don't close out live control room. So, but yeah, I mean, well, I guess, we should talk about the people in the middle here. So, okay, if you're nervous about stuff, look, you got a lot of guinea pigs. You got a lot of guinea pigs in all of us who got our shots. How much longer do you want to be watching? First responders started getting the vaccine at the beginning of the year. How many months do you want to wait? If you aren't vaccinated and you're not one of those angry people who's like, this thing sucks, here's what you do. The United States has a glut of supply. You can get vaccines at Walmart, pharmacies, blah, 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 vaccines.gov if you need to actually search for a place or you want to pick your shot. But Johnson & Johnson has a 2-week ramp-up period, so theoretically you could take a staycation, just sit in the house for 2 weeks until the thing gets up to, after you get your shot, until the thing gets up to gets up to 100%. I'd say if anybody is unvaccinated and they're nervous, they've been putting it off or whatever, but they get spooked by, Delta gets a little too close for comfort, just grab a J&J and then, do something for 2 weeks somehow. But, it's crazy that one of the demographics in play here is the evangelical Christians, like folks I grew up with, who would talk about the Bible all the time. There's a passage that talks about someone being saved as though escaping from the flames. In a secular sense, it's just sad that there are going to be some people that are spooked into getting their shots that will become vaccinated because they came really close to something really scary and they put themselves at risk. That's just sad in and of itself that it's going to happen, but it's people. There's a lot of people with a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different thresholds for, oh crap, I should do something. My stepmother said, oh yeah, it's all because of people. Yeah. Kind of a blanket insult for problems people cause in society, but yeah, if you're unvaccinated and you get spooked by something, I want it. Go grab a J&J with its 2-week ramp-up period because Pfizer and Moderna take longer. I like mRNA technology because I'm a nerd and I understand things like how easy the logistics side of it and how mRNA has a lot of potential as a technology in terms of producing lots of vaccines, lots of shots fast if we need them, versus live or attenuated virus or viral vector or something like that. That's one of the things that, poorer parts of the world are having problems with. So it's trying to manufacture shots quickly enough with older technology that just takes longer. But mRNA, I like mRNA because I'm a nerd. I like Moderna because I'm from New England. Moderna is based in Massachusetts. So I'm supporting local businesses here. But, if J&J has the 2-week ramp-up period. In a pinch, J&J, 1 dose, 2 weeks. So you don't want a situation where you're just worried about being partially vaccinated And it's just in a sense, you're like, oh crap, you know, I've gone to all the trouble to get the first shot. I'm on my way to my second shot. And then 2 weeks after that, boy, would it be embarrassing if I got this thing while I was trying to, you know, change sides here. That's the thing. In terms of feeling like a total ass, how much worse does it get than if you have problems with COVID while you're partially vaccinated? That's the thing. So there's elements of what the politicians are saying, what the medical field is saying, what people are saying. There's the elements of all of that that are in play here. There's all this other stuff that's going on, but there's also, you know, just your personal experience and how you feel about it. It'd be pretty embarrassing if, say, you want to do the right thing and it turned out to be too late. And nobody, I don't think, wants to be that person being told by the doctor it's too late for the shot when you're already hospitalized. And last I checked, we'll have to check it again once I get my browsers back, the guidance was if you come down with it, you can't get the shot until you're symptom-free for a certain amount of time. So it's one of those things you want to do in advance. That's the thing. It's one of those things you want to do in advance. But as it stands right now, I'm just done with all the screeching and hollering around here. The only people I even want to be talking to are the people that haven't already made up their minds that they're going to be a stick in the mud to all of this, because the mask thing, Delta ripping up the country, all this other stuff, as far as I'm concerned, it's their fault. And President Biden may be trying to be nice and da-da-da-da-da, everybody's grandpa, but I'm not President Biden. If some dumb thing you've been saying or doing has caused other people harm, I have a problem with you. Because of the some dumb thing you've done. No different than if you were a drunk driver who smashed up someone's fences, totaled someone's car, and ran over someone. It was something dumb you did. You need to be held accountable for it. Makes all the sense in the world when it's not the pandemic. But when you got somebody spewing disinformation that is leading to people dying, suddenly we got to get democratic about it. No. Knowledge and ignorance both deserve seats at the table. Enough. How's that for a rant? So here's what's next for me. I know full well we're heading towards an environment where I'm going to see people who I know have been antagonistic to the vaccine come down with Delta. They're going to get booted out of work on quarantine. There's going to be more money to be made while they're out because things are going to get harder, because even if we bring people in to hire new people, they're not going to be as good. So the inevitable is the inevitable. You know, I talk about a Covidiot plague where it's, you know, the virus is going around because of anti-vaxxer disinformation and other garbage like that. Well, that's going to involve a process, and that's going to involve an experience. And part of that experience is putting a mask back on, because it's time to grab the popcorn and see what this thing does. Maybe in a couple of weeks, the internet will be a quieter place because the people doing all the screeching will be too sick to be barreling away on their keyboards all the time. But the only people I really am concerned about are the people caught in the middle. The people that are unsure or whatnot. But I think that once we've gotten a certain amount of that, once we've gotten a certain amount of those folks vaccinated, it's time to it's time to stop punishing the people who did the right thing in all of this. The Biden administration may be too nice and grandfatherly and stuff to do that, but I would love to see that. Because look, this is America. This is a land of personal responsibility, and rights, no matter how much you screech about them, have responsibilities that come along with them. If you're irresponsible, especially to your fellow citizens, you deserve to be held accountable for what you've done and said and whatever. So there's always there's two sides to this whole thing. You deserve to be, you need to step up to the plate and be a responsible citizen. There's nothing wrong with that. That is totally American. And as far as I'm concerned, it's time we went back to our roots on that. What's the responsible thing to do? Get vaccinated. If you can't get vaccinated, shelter in place, wear masks and whatnot. And if you are vaccinated, with the new guidance out, wear masks when there's a lot of Delta going around, because we got to get this thing under control. Because even if you just get Delta sniffles, you're just booted out of work. What about the lack of money coming in, things like that? But most importantly, what about the virus mutating into something that's even worse and throwing us back to square one? Now everybody's got to scramble to come out with booster shots. That's what the real going back would be. Not putting on a mask again. The real going back would be a variant that was vaccine resistant. The real going back would be, we have to go back to 2020 again. And how much the way we did things then, because we had nothing to counter this thing with that was anything other than, you know, general stuff like what we now have to bring back into play now. That would be the grandest insult of them all, is being sent essentially back to 2020 on what we could do about this thing. Who wants to go back to that? Anybody? Did anybody actually like 2020? How about lockdowns? How about lockdowns? How about non-essential folks getting laid off? How about if you're a business owner who was forced to shut down and now nobody wants to work for you now because they don't want to get laid off again as Delta surges back up? They'd already been laid off once before for being non-essential. Why would they want to risk doing that again and having no stability in their lives? Unless there's supplemental unemployment that people are consistently arguing against on one side of the political spectrum. Who wants any of that? Hopefully not anyone listening to this. If any of you actually want that crap, unsubscribe. Go away. You don't want anything to do with me, and I don't want anything to do with you. Because I am done. I am done with all of this nonsense. Right. Let's go get the masks ready then. Back to looking like a ninja, and I am not happy about it. And I am not entertaining anyone's lunacy in the local area. This is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.